Let's go.
Wednesday afternoon.
A man short. And they went and did it by taking the game to penalties, which, I mean, the old Manchester United would have crumbled. At most in the second half, they would have conceded another goal, which would have meant being out. But mind you, defending champions, Manchester United of the FA Cup. So I don't really know what's happening with the players. I don't really understand what is going on in the camp or whatever you call it. I mean, it's like hot and cold, aren't they? 1 minute they're playing, next minute. I mean, they play big teams and they perform well. I remember when they played Manchester City, they won.
Yeah.
And then they played Liverpool, and then they drew.
Yeah.
And then they played Arsenal, and now they, but as soon as they play the smaller teams, they crumble. So I don't get it. Is it the mentality? What is going on there?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and it's a strange thing that affects some teams like that. And certainly in the case of Crystal Palace, there's been an argument over the last few seasons that Palace play much better and get better results against the better teams, the top teams. Right. We for about 3 or 4 years until recently, probably more than that, Palace were the last team to beat Manchester City at Manchester City. Now, I think that was back in 2017, and I think possibly since then as well. But that record finally went, I think, earlier this season, or it may have been last season. Somebody else beat them there. But yeah, Palace do the same thing. And I don't know whether when Man United, when they come up against the lower teams, there's a certain complacency about them, a sense that, well, we're going to win this game, we don't have to try too hard. I mean, that may creep in. It's not very professional if it does, but there could be something like that, because I agree that it doesn't make any sense. And I think this has been said, I don't know, by the manager at Man U, why are they not producing this more regularly against teams? How can they be much better against Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, and yet pretty rubbish against some lower teams? And I'm not sure we've got the answer to it. No. I mean, you could say, well, in the Premier League, it's probably true that any team could beat any other team. Not so much now. I mean, we could say Southampton could beat Manchester United tonight.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a prospect of that, given that Southampton have got no positive momentum about their play at the moment, which is a shame. So, but generally, I think one team can beat any other team on the day. So maybe that has something to do with it. And it's why the Premier League is as competitive and great to watch as it is. But yeah, as to why specifically Manchester United are turning it on against the better teams, I don't know, unless it is complacency. But you think professional footballers wouldn't willingly or knowingly do that. Maybe that complacency is something a bit unwitting that they're not aware of, but they think, well, we're not against a great opponent here, so we can afford not to do the hard yards, the heavy running and all that. It could be something like that. But it's an interesting dilemma that teams sometimes have, isn't it?
Yeah, and something else that I noticed. So all the players that were on the verge of being, transferred, loaned out, sold, whatever, they all performed. They all performed very well. So Zexi, he scored a goal, and what's the other one? There's another one that he was definitely going to sell. Dear me. But anyway, they performed well, and they even played the penalties, and they even scored.
Yeah.
Penalties. And I was looking at them, I'm thinking, well, if you could perform like this, why are you rubbishing your form or performance or whatever it is by losing unnecessarily? Because some of the games that they lose, I look at it and I think, well, any team would beat that team, and yeah, they beat Manchester United. And it just makes me think, well, is there going to be a turnaround where, you know, these players are actually going to start picking up the slack, you know, and think, you know what, I want to stay here. But I think Rashford is definitely leaving.
He is leaving, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's definitely leaving. I think he's had enough. I think he's had enough with. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think he's had enough with, you know, the way things are being done there. So yeah, so it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think it might be, the answer might be in the psychology of the game, you know.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I think it might just be in the psychology of the game. Yeah, just moving on from Manchester United, Liverpool drew Nottingham Forest. Now, now that is a worthy adversary there. That Nottingham Forest. I mean, do you think we might be underrating them? Because the way they played against Liverpool, Liverpool had to fight to get at least a point from the game.
It's a fascinating case study in a way, Nottingham Forest. I mean, just to briefly go back to what you were saying, we could also say about Manchester City that the teams that they would ordinarily have been expected to beat quite easily, they haven't. They've had a pretty terrible, torrid time of it lately, haven't they? One way or another. So, in a way, you know, people are not automatons. Footballers are not robots. They don't just do it necessarily to order. Yes, you get a good team that manifests itself as Manchester United did throughout the 90s and 2000s and so on, and as Man City have done for the last few years, Liverpool too. But apart from those better teams, because they've got better players, more resources to buy those players, it is a game. The great thing about it is the competition, that any team can, in theory, beat any other team. So it doesn't surprise me that teams go through this downtime. Now, you talked about Forest, we talked about Leicester. Now, I think they've lost the last 6 games. Now, they weren't terrible. They weren't a terrible team last night by any means, but I think this gets into players' heads that they're on a downswing.
Soft family and the ladies, Dr. Gladys and Phantom and Rose. We all have a lovely show every weekday. So join us for a lovely show.
Say hello to Phantom.